Today I find myself at Aldgate, the easternmost reach of the Metropolitan line. Officially speaking, Aldgate lies just within the bounds of the City of London. It should on no account be confused with Aldgate East, which is a District Line station a very short distance away. More on that later. Aldgate was opened in 1876 by the Metropolitan Railway. The first section of the Metropolitan Railway opened in 1863 and ran from Paddington to Farringdon, although originally those stations were Paddington Bishop's Road and Farringdon Street. It was an immediate success, and now there was some debate among the company shareholders as to the direction the railway should take. I mean in business terms, not literally. Well, also literally. Some believed they should concentrate on the 3 3/4 mile line they already had, others wanted to expand further out. To some extent their hand was forced by external factors. The success of the Metropolitan Railway had caused another of those railway manias that used to seize the public imagination from time to time. Within a year of the line opening, no fewer than 259 proposals were put before Parliament for new underground railways in London. Most of these would go nowhere, but the point was this. If the Metropolitan didn't seize their advantage, there was a good chance that someone else would. One of the schemes that did get parliamentary approval was one of the earliest, presented in November 1863 by John Fowler, who was the chief engineer of the Metropolitan Railway. This was the Inner Circle scheme to build a circular line connecting several of the major mainline termini. The southern half would be built by a new company, the Metropolitan District Railway, while the northern bit would consist of extensions to the already existing Metropolitan line. I'm not going to bother talking about the western extension for now because we'll be here all night. The first eastern extension was to Moorgate in 1865. Then there was a rather long delay, mostly for financial reasons. After that initial success, profits had slumped, which was pretty standard for railways, and yet no one seemed to ever spot the pattern. It didn't help that the Metropolitan Board of Directors were so corrupt that they would be taken to court where their accounting was ruled to be, and I quote, false, fictitious and fraudulent. Edward Watkin would be made chairman in an attempt to sort the mess out, and he had no interest whatsoever in this inner circle nonsense. Eventually Parliament stepped in and basically forced the Metropolitan to get back to it, and the extension to Bishopsgate Metropolitan opened in 1875. You'd know Bishopsgate Metropolitan as Liverpool Street. And on the 18th of November 1876 the line reached Aldgate. Originally the station looked rather different, at least from the front. The current building, with its white tile-clad exterior, was designed by Charles Clark, the Metropolitan Railway's architect from 1911 to 1933. This style of building is an instant giveaway that we're looking at a Metropolitan station. Well, that and the fact that it says MR on the front. Inside, though, the station doesn't look a million miles from how it would have done to the Victorians. Of course, it's been extensively modernised, but the train shed is an original feature, and I think gives it a lot of class. Grand though the station was, it was only part of the story, and in 1879 an extension to Mansion House would be authorised. Mansion House was the terminus of the Metropolitan District Railway and would enable the completion of the Circle Line. At the same time, an extension to meet the East London Railway was also authorised. Aldgate used to be an important stopping point in the 19th century when the line was powered by steam. The locomotives used were fitted with condensers, which were basically pipes that would collect exhaust steam, condense it, hence the name, and discharge it back into the water tanks. It was a not entirely successful attempt to improve the frankly dreadful condition of the air in the tunnels. The problem that arose, apart from the fact that it didn't really do much, was that the water in the tanks gradually grew hotter, so the condensers became less efficient. Therefore, at Aldgate, the hot water in the tanks was emptied out and replaced with cold. They had this down to a fine art and could typically replace the water in about 5 minutes before continuing around the circle. In 1884, the District Railway opened Aldgate East Station, which was originally even closer to Aldgate, but was relocated in 1938. That's a whole story in itself, and I've made a video on the subject, which should be popping up in the corner. Until 1949, the Circle Line was considered to be part of both the District and Metropolitan lines and wasn't separately marked on the map. That year it officially became its own thing, and so Aldgate found itself on the Metropolitan and Circle lines. In 1990, the Hammersmith and City line underwent a similar process, so now Aldgate was on that line too. This also meant that there was no longer officially any Metropolitan line service east of the station, hence that bit at the beginning when I said that Aldgate was the eastern terminus of the Metropolitan. In 2005, the station hit the headlines when it was one of the targets of the infamous 7th of July suicide bombings. 7 passengers travelling on an eastbound Circle Line train were killed in the blast. Aldgate was the first of the targeted stations to reopen after 20 days of investigation and repairs, and now there is a memorial to those murdered in the attack. Today, Aldgate is still an important station. The old rivalries are long gone, and it shares out-of-station interchange with Aldgate East, Fenchurch Street and Tower Gateway. Unlike many of the old Metropolitan stations, it's not a listed building, which seems a little inconsistent, but I don't make the rules. Good evening, I hope you enjoyed this condensed tale from the tube. If you did, steam on over to the thumbs up button and subscribe for more steamy content. Thanks as ever to my generous donors on Ko-fi and Patreon. You are the cold water to my overheated tanks. Now I'm sure someone in the comments section will have mentioned the Sherlock Holmes story, The Adventure of the Bruce Partington Plans, which partly takes place at Aldgate Station. I am aware of the story, but I'm thinking it might deserve its own video, when I get around to it, one of these days. Anyway, I'll see you all again very soon for another tale from the tube.